Welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset. I am your host, Coach Crosser, and today I welcome a special guest by the name of Eilidh Sutherland. Eilidh is an online coach and co-owner of the RFA online coaching program, which stands for Ready for Anything. It's all about running fast, lifting heavy, and looking good. Now, not only that, Eilidh is a very competitive person herself and competing in multiple endurance events from Hyrox to ultramarathons and everything else in between. Now, Eilidh's story is really fascinating. She actually struggled with anorexia and was admitted to hospital and nearly lost her life through this process. And this was one of the reasons I wanted to get her on, to really communicate her side of her experience and the things that sort of got her through that, and how she's managed to transform her own life and is now in a position where she's helping others do so too. Now, as always with these episodes, if you're new around here, look, I'm going to ask a favour for you. It's a bit of a cheeky one, but one of the best ways you can support the show is by leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen to this. It would really help us out a lot. It helps support the show. It's free to do, maybe takes a couple of seconds, so if you could do that, that would mean the world to me. The second thing is, if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow me at Coach Crosser. You can follow the podcast page at Bulletproof Mindset __. And of course, if this is the first time that you're hearing about Eilidh's story, I'm going to leave a link to all her details in the show notes below. She's primarily on Instagram at EILZ, which is EILZ.readyforanything. But as always, you can find the links to the Instagram and things like that in the show notes. And of course, if it's someone that you're maybe interested in working with, the details will be there. So without further ado, enjoy today's episode. It is a banger as always, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Maybe I think it is. So.
Oh my God, that's mental, isn't it?
I know, but he had said to me that I should look into your story because you had a really interesting story, and I think that's when I followed you initially. So obviously the first time that we met. I know it sounds kind of weird, but kind of been lurking in the background. But your journey's like pretty incredible, pretty mad. So hopefully we'll get into all this in today's chat anyway. But how is the competing side of things going just now?
With like Hyrox,
everything
like a bit mad. Like
Hyrox. I saw you done the East Coast Break. Was that a trail run?
Yeah, it was so me and Kristian actually trained and rode for it. We were like, Kristian looked at and he was like, the elevation isn't that bad. Oh my God, like we did not train properly for that. We were going out and doing road runs and it was all like proper flat running, and then we got there in the day and I was like, this is not what we trained for. But I turned up as well. I've got no toenails right now. I've got a big toenail that's hanging off.
Do you know what this?
And one big toenail, right, and that's it.
That's so weird that you say that, because last night I've only just started increasing my running capacity. I think I'm lucky if I've done more than 30k a week. And as it came, I'm like, the runners just not have toenails.
Yeah, so I've got
funny
like
that you mentioned that.
1.5 because the other one's fallen off. One was just growing back and it fell off again this morning. I was like, there's that toenail's gone again. But I bought running shoes that looked cool that were too small for me before that ultra. I normally buy half a size up, but they didn't have them in my size, and I was like, oh fuck it, I'll just buy them. They look cool. Stupid idea. So anyway, I had to run in my Puma Nitros that I do like for Hyrox and carbon plated shoes. Didn't think it through, so for the first like 12k of that run I couldn't feel my feet, to the point like I was convincing myself that I was having a stroke. Like I was actually starting to in my head go, you can't do this, like this is something sinister. And normally it's like Kristian that starts kind of like when we're doing any sort of endurance stuff, if it's speed, like he can hold speed so much longer for me, but for endurance it's normally him that cracks first. But I was like, oh my God, like he's actually running faster than me and I'm struggling to keep
cave already.
And I was like, how the fuck am I going to do this? Like I don't know how, but we made it to the end. And
experience.
It was
second. It was a
fourth female.
Fourth.
I was, but I would never do like an ultra endurance event with Kristian again.
No.
Never with my partner. Like, do not advise it. It was so emotional because I said to Kristian at one point, I was crying, having a panic attack, and he was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Because it was him. He was in the pain cave. I was fine, but I was so upset at how much pain he was in, and I was watching him because there was one point where he was stopping, being sick. Like, he just kept going, oh, he was like a zombie, and I was like, how is he going to run another 20k? Not that I was doubting him, because I've watched him do so many things before, like the Keltman and everything, but in that moment, I think because obviously like I'd ran 30k, like although I wasn't finding it as hard as him, it was still hard.
Man, didn't it?
I was just like, oh my God, no, never again. When I finished, I was like, that is the worst thing I've ever done, and not even physically, like mentally.
So I think this is quite crazy because you only, I think from what I see through Instagram stuff, you only kind of taken up running when you were like 2 years ago.
Yeah, just over 2 years ago.
So you kind of naturally, I don't know, what is it that you gravitated towards running and the endurance side of things for you?
Because Kristian was training for extreme triathlon at the time, and he kept going out and doing his slow runs too fast, and he kept coming in and going, I've cooked myself again. He wasn't finishing them, he was fucked, and I went, I don't run, I'm pish at running, I'll come out and run with you. And then because it made me be consistent with running, like my 20th ever run, I ran the Glasgow Half Marathon and I think I came 135th female, which...
So you really experienced the runner's high then?
I didn't even enjoy it until probably this year is probably when I really started enjoying running. It was more just, I was kind of like, right, I'm quite good at this, I should keep doing it. And even like after I did Glasgow Half, I was like, right, maybe I'll try a marathon. I did Manchester, it scarred myself. Like that was a horrible experience. My average heart rate was like 198. I think my heart rate peaked at 213. Like on paper, people were looking at it like that was an amazing run. Like I couldn't walk for 2 weeks after it. I cried during it. I had to have like a mantra for myself. I was going, you're fit, you're strong, you're capable, just to get myself through. I'd also hurt my foot just before it, and I kept thinking, you could just stop and just tell everyone that your foot was sore and it'd be fine. And Kristian was running behind me with our client Kieran, and I just kept thinking, if they catch up with me, I'm done. I am done. Like, I don't know how I made it through. But then that marathon qualified me for London. So when I finished, I was like, never again. And then after that kind of went away, I was like, now I need to do London. And then that's kind of when we fell into Hyrox. And I think Hyrox really actually made me fall in love with running because it gave me more of a purpose rather than I'm just doing this.
Runs, So let's go back. So have you always been into fitness? So I know we'll obviously go into the challenges and life-threatening challenges almost actually. So has fitness always been a thing for you, or
sport more? Like when I was younger, I did Highland dancing from I was 4 till I was like 16. I swam every week for like the local swimming club. I played hockey for North Ayrshire and for Irvine Ladies. Like I played on like most of the schools teams, but I was never particularly amazing at anything. I was just kind of all right at everything. I just enjoyed like
was it enjoyment factor?
Yeah.
What one did you like the most when growing up?
That's a hard question because they were all quite different. I probably did dancing the most, but I probably liked hockey the best because it was like the team side of it, and actually like going and like spending like a Saturday with the girls and having lunch after.
So the community side of things is probably the reason why. So growing up, what's your relationship like with family and all that sort of stuff? Are you an only child, or?
So I've got a big brother and a big sister. Well, they've got a different mum from me, but they've always been my brother and sister. They've been about since I was born. Like I see their mum as my mum. Like my mum kind of brought them up. And then I had a younger sister as well. So she was a year and a bit younger than me, but she passed away when I was really quite young. She had cancer.
Oh, did she? Oh, wow. So what was the whole dynamic of your household growing up? Were they all competitive, or was there any competitiveness at all? Was it more?
No, not at all. Well, my brother's 9 years older than me and my sister's 12 years older than me, so they were a good bit older than me. So
hard to compete, they've got age on you.
Yeah. So there wasn't really like a real competitiveness. My brother played hockey, so I suppose like in that sense, I seen him and my dad playing hockey, but they all moved out. Like my brother moved out when he was 16. My sister moved out, I think, when she was 17, and then came back for a year when she had my niece, and then moved out again. So I was kind of like an only child, but not an only child. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I had friends growing up in high school, and they had big brothers, but I think in high school their brothers were like 37 and 38, and you just think, oh, they're so old and all that, and we're slowly approaching that age now, which you just turned 30 recently. So how does your life look today than what you thought it would look when you were younger growing up?
Oh my God, so different. See, because my sister had my niece when she was 19 and she was obviously 12 years older than me. I remember being in primary 3 when my niece was born and being like, oh my God, she's well old. I'm going to have like 10 babies and like a big house by then. And now I'm 30 and I'm like, the idea that scares the shit out of me. My best friend's pregnant. One of my other really good friends is pregnant. I was just saying to Gillian before we came in, I had like a bit of a, not a midlife crisis, but like when they both told me within a couple of weeks of each other that they were pregnant, and I was a bit like, Kristian, there's so much stuff that like we still want to do.
Yeah. Do you want a family?
Yeah.
So it's something that you want.
But we were kind of like, there's so much stuff that we still want to do. Like we've been saying since we met that we were going to go travelling, and we've like travelled for like a month and stuff, but we've not actually
done it
like properly done it. So at the end of this year, we're putting our house up for rent, and we're just going to.
So you're going for it?
Yeah.
So what made you bite the bullet eventually then with that?
I think that was kind of like
30.
Yeah, 30, and then like obviously my friends saying that they were pregnant. We were a bit like, we do actually have to have this conversation. We're like, we don't want it yet, but we are getting to that age where it is harder.
I know I think all of Jill's group of friends, bar 2 of them, all got sort of pregnant within a year apart from each other. And I remember Gillian, she went to meet them all and they all had their babies. Jill was the only one that was meeting up that didn't have the babies, and she came back and she's like, yeah, I think we need to start a family. But as she's kept going to them, she's like, it's quite nice to be able to walk away from that just now.
Yeah.
It's like something we obviously, of course, want, but it's very similar to you and Kristian. We're very, I don't know if the word's selfish, but we've got a lot of selfish places that we want to go and travel to and things to do in business and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's a hard dynamic though.
Yeah.
But how scary is it thinking at a turning 30 and you're like, wow, life is nowhere near where I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, miles different.
Aye, crazy. It's like way off. What's can you remember any like aspirations that you had growing up, like high school age, what you wanted to do job wise, career wise?
I didn't have a fucking Scooby-Doo.
No.
Do you mind me swearing? Sorry,
I know, of course I
I'm so
did.
bad.
No.
I didn't have a Scooby-Doo. Like, when I was like, obviously at school, they're like, you need to pick your subjects, and I was kind of like, well, I like PE, I like art. They were both in the same column, so I had to pick between the two. So I picked art at school, which looking back, I probably should have picked PE. But when I left school, I went and did interior design just because I was like, I'm quite good at art and I like decorating things, and I'm quite creative.
Pushed down the rabbit hole of like what to do.
Yeah.
Was that influenced by anyone, or was it just? Did you have any support through that?
So my mum was very like, you should go and study something. Looking back now, if I was to go back and do school again, I'd probably go and get an apprenticeship when I left school. Like, I wasn't ever that great at studying. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm not clever, but I'm not very good at like textbook
Right, okay, got you.
sort of studying.
Yeah.
So when I left school, I went and did interior design. Hated it, but I met one of my really good friends there, so I'm always grateful for having done it, because I wouldn't know Laura if I hadn't been and done that. Did that for like a year and a half. Halfway through, I was like to my mum and dad, hate this, can't do it any longer. So at that point, I did actually say I'd quite like to go and do sports. I think it was like sports therapy or something at City of Glasgow College. And my mum was like, you can't really get a job with that. And see, at the time, like, it wasn't really like the fitness industry wasn't.
Nah, it's only started booming more in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like online coaching, I think it was bodybuilders and that was it.
Yeah.
It was the spreadsheets and Excels and the formulas.
Nothing else.
Then they have True Coach.
And then you had like the odd person in a gym that was a PT, but there wasn't much else. And it was at that point where I'd just started getting back in to the gym again. I'd went to like a kind of functional gym, and so I was like, right, what else am I going to do? So I went and studied. Well, I went and worked for the Rainbow Room, and I did hairdressing. I was an apprentice in there. So
I saw you hairdressing backstage at Tina Park. That ended up opening a few doors then.
Yeah.
Was that
was with Rainbow Room, so that was
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
We did quite a lot of cool things, like hair shows, stuff for Glasgow School of Art. I was their fastest ever qualifying apprentice at the time.
Right.
I won awards for like newcomer of the year and stuff, but I just didn't enjoy it. And then
fulfill you.
At the time, I thought it was maybe the salon that I worked in, so I went and worked in a salon with a girl that I'd worked with in Rainbow Room, and I was there for a couple of months, and then she had to let me go. She couldn't afford to keep me on just after Christmas, and at that point, I didn't have a lot of belief or confidence in myself, and I'd started looking at other salons, and like my friend's cousin, he'd said like, come work with me, but I was kind of starting to doubt myself. And at that point, my best friend, she worked for the Red Cross, and she'd said, well, we've got a temporary contract here just now whilst you're looking for a salon. Come work here, and then you can leave whenever you decide what you're going to do. But when I went there, me and Kristian were at this point where we were now kind of like partying, like going out a lot at the weekends, and I was like, this is pure cushy, like, because in the salon I had to work weekends and nights, and I was like, it's like 8 till 4, Monday to Friday.
What was it in the Red Cross?
It was in their finance department,
right,
so it was like accounts payable, so I paid like the bills and stuff. It's quite boring, but I like the people that I worked with. And
tune in, but you can tune out, like less stress and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
When did you meet Kristian?
Nearly 8 years ago.
8 years ago. So when, in your sort of journey kind of going through this, when do you kind of come across where you, I don't know what the right term here is, but diagnosed with anorexia or realised that you were anorexic? When did that whole part in your journey happen?
I wouldn't say that I ever really accepted it until I was really, I knew probably like, so like I'll kind of like rewind. So before I met Kristian, I really struggled in my relationship with food and exercise. Me and Kristian met. He wasn't a coach at the time either. He was in the RAF, but he was just leaving to become a coach. So he kind of showed me like a kind of new side of fitness. I was obviously a bit happier at the time. My relationship with food got better. And then when I went through that point where I was transitioning between working in the salon and working in the office, and before I kind of started I did the business degree as well. I've literally did everything in the world. And that's when my relationship with food started to get quite bad again. But at that point, I was quite good at covering it up, so I almost didn't believe it. But then I started noticing things like my hair was falling out. So deep down, I kind of knew that something wasn't right. I was going to the doctors and I was like, oh, I think I've maybe got like an iron deficiency. But because I wasn't telling them the full truth as well, like they couldn't
masking it.
So they couldn't really give me answers. It was more like I had to come to the point of accepting it. It wasn't till one day, it was during lockdown actually, I just said to Kristian, I was like, I just don't think that like I'm right. And Kristian was like, well, evidently, like at this time I was tiny.
Right.
And that's when it got really, really bad actually, when I admitted it.
Mm-hmm.
It got worse, and it probably wasn't until I actually went into hospital that was like the kind of biggest like wake up call of like, this is real, when the doctor was like you've got anorexia. And even when we told Kristian's mum, like she was a bit like, you can't have an eating disorder. I see you eating food, because I was still eating every day. I was eating 1,200 calories a day. So I'd like committed to that. Like, see when people say, when I see on Instagram, people saying like, I ate 1,200 calories a day. I'm like, you didn't, because I did it for 12 weeks and I nearly died. So
this is a really interesting part. So you think of like coaches in space, we are tackling a performance. Well, performance is the hype just now, the whole hybrid training. But the main thing is usually fat loss, weight loss. But there's a big chunk. I was looking at some stats and I couldn't believe this, that 3.3 million people in the UK are actually classed as underweight, and this majority affects women. 75 to 90% of them that get diagnosed are women, which is crazy. So you said you didn't accept it till your mid-20s, or is this in your 20s? Yeah. What was this evident in the earlier part of your life, like going through high school,
Not at all. When I was like, probably not until I was about 19 maybe.
Where do you think that started coming from? Was it pressure of what you were looking at in social media, or was it pressure within? Or
so at the time I'd started training in a bodybuilding gym,
right.
And I kind of got into bodybuilding, like I prepped down for a show. I would never say like, you hear people all the time saying like, oh, I had an eating disorder, it was because I did this bikini competition, or I was bodybuilding, and like it did a lot of like good things for me as well, like bodybuilding, but that was probably what triggered it. But a lot of it comes through actually, like for me it was a lot about control. So like when times in my life I felt out of control or unhappy, like that was my vice. It was covering up for something else, because I felt like I could control what I was eating, I could control my weight, rather than actually looking at, right, what's the real thing that needs to be sorted here.
So was it always fixated on weight, or was it feeling, or was it how you looked?
It was an element of everything, never really weight. Like weight was never something that really bothered me so much, and that was probably the scary thing, was when I went into hospital, because I didn't know what weight I was until they'd actually, because it was lockdown and I couldn't go in and see them, they'd asked me to weigh myself. And when I'd weighed myself, that was a big wake up call, because I was like, shit, I didn't realise.
What did you think you were?
I was,
it was
like
32.
45 and it was like 32.
32 kilos is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Like
so that tiny. Was like, maybe a something more here.
Yeah.
So what was, can you remember like any of the habits or the behaviours that you found yourself doing, like at the earlier age of 19?
Loads of ridiculous things. I would eat like full tubs of Greek yogurt for my lunch. Like I sometimes like wouldn't eat for a day, or I'd eat like 800 calories for like 4 days in a row. But then at the weekend it would be more like binging, so it would be totally the opposite way. And because I didn't look physically ill, a lot of people wouldn't have actually known, because they'd see me, especially at the weekends and like socialising events out and eating. And that's probably why lockdown was actually really, really good for me, because it meant that I couldn't eat out, so there was nothing to break the cycle, as whereas that was probably the bit that was actually keeping my weight healthy. But I think that's the scary thing with eating disorders. Like I can't even remember how many people it is that are actually like underweight with eating disorders, but so many people live with eating disorders that aren't underweight, and it goes undiagnosed.
The thing is just accepted, and that's all. Do you believe that's a detriment from the diet culture that we've kind of raised in the fitness space?
Yeah, definitely. I think like fat loss isn't fitness, it's a part of health, but it's not fitness, and it seems to be like the be all and end all.
This number on the scales is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I think the number was like one in every 250 women will or it's estimated that they'll develop some form of anorexia or some sort of eating disorder, whether it's bulimia and that sort of stuff, which is mental. And
but I think I had bulimia first.
Oh, was it right? Okay.
So I struggled with binge eating, which developed into bulimia, which then, rather than me going and speaking, because I was so embarrassed to speak about it, as well. And I think when you feel shameful about something, you don't want to speak about it. So then I tried to fix it for myself rather than me saying I need help with this. I was like, well, the solution is just to track my calories and stick to them, and I actually committed to it, and then that's when it spiraled out of control.
So see your binge eating episode, so that would look like a whole tub of Greek yogurt and then nothing for a period, a day or two. Is that how the relationship? So that would have been more like
if I was like binge eating, it would have been like things like I would have maybe had like Greek yogurt or like tuna and lettuce for like lunch during the week, but then at the weekend it would have been like full packets of bagels. Like when I worked at the Red Cross, like, and I worked with my best friend Carly, I'd buzz for the days that we couldn't travel together, because I'd be like, yes, this is a day where I can stop. Like I remember going to like McDonald's via the KFC drive-through, like eating like full packets of like see like those 12 box of 12 donuts that you get from Greg's, like eating them on the way home from work and then stopping at the next shop to get something else to eat. Like it's horrible, but it's like so many people don't understand binge eating. You'll hear people say I had a binge, and it's like, but did you, or did you just overeat? Like at the weekend there, I was a bit of a dick. It was my birthday. Like I ate out 3 days in a row. I had 2 bits of cake every single day. Like I didn't feel out of control. Like if somebody said, do you have to have that cake? I would have been like, no. As whereas like when I was like struggling with binge eating, it was almost like it was all that was on my mind, and I couldn't wait to just be in my own to
let
eat.
loose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that because of the feeling that you got for it? Was that like a rush, a buzz?
Yeah, probably. Like I think it would have came from like a lot of different things. There would have been like the feeling associated with it, but then also like other factors with the fact that like I'd starved myself all week, so I was starving. So as soon as my body then get a taste of something, it was like a combination of different things.
It's really interesting. I think a lot of people listening would be like, how can binge eating, because surely people who binge eat end up being obese or overweight, whereas you've had a completely different side effect to this, which has been going down the path of like bulimic and then anorexic and that sort of stuff. A very like crazy thing to think about, because automatically it's like weight gain. Nobody really talks about weight loss. I remember someone messaging me actually I'd done an episode on obesity, and she was working in the NHS, and she messaged saying I should do a conversation on those who are underweight, because she actually believes there's more people underweight coming through the system of the NHS than actually overweight. And I think it's debating, I don't know, splitting hairs really. I think there's two extremes to that, but that kind of opened my eyes, because you think, I think there's, well, I guess the question I'll put to you is, from an underweight perspective or from an anorexia, knowing the numbers that comes out, what was the reason that you felt shamed? Like where did that come from?
I don't know. I think like at the time I was probably so in my own head that I felt like I was the only person, that like the fact that I was like eating so much food and I couldn't help myself, and I was like, part of it as well as like the anorexia started to spiral. It almost felt like an addiction. So like every night I would go to my bed and I would tell myself, oh, I don't need to speak about this, because tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll do something different. And then the next day I would get up, I would have done 15,000 steps before I had my breakfast. I'd have the same breakfast that I always had, and it was just like I just couldn't stop myself. So
did you trigger working out and moving more to combat the food that you were having?
Yeah.
What was the extreme stuff then? 15,000 steps before breakfast?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So it kind of started as like 5,000, and then it was 6,000, because the thing when you've got like an eating disorder is like once you've done something, it's almost like, right, I've done it once, like I can't go back on that.
Right, yeah.
So it was kind of like
programmed.
Once I did an extra couple of steps some days, the next morning I'd be like, well, I did that yesterday, so I have to do that or more the next day. Then once I'd done more, it was just more and more and more.
And did you mask this by going, I'll just sign up to a bodybuilding show because that is the culture, or was that because
No,
of the
that
culture?
was all like before. So that was when
right?
I like first kind of, so I had trained at a functional gym, and then I stopped training for a while, and then when I got back into training, it was a bodybuilding gym that I'd went to, and they'd said, oh, like you would do really well at a competition. And that's kind of when I started dieting down, and I had like a meal plan and stuff, and that was through like a lack of like me educating myself. It was nothing to do with anyone else. That was all my choices and my decisions. But from there I then built a lot of beliefs around about nutrition, and because I then like had a lot of beliefs about myself, it kind of like, I think the thing with like eating disorders, it's for a lot of people it's underlying. There's other things that trigger it, there's other things that like are a build up to it happening, but that was just the thing that kind of triggered it and opened it up and started it for me.
Yeah. What was some of your beliefs around nutrition that you look back at, and like, I know carbs would probably be one.
Yeah.
But when you look back, you think, what a numpty I was.
I used to, in the gym, I would not leave the gym if I hadn't have ate like a bowl of oats and a protein shake in the gym.
In the gym?
In the gym, like there was a microwave in the gym.
Was and I would be like, anabolic window or something like that? Yeah. Or was it?
Like everyone always asks, like we were in the gym recently and somebody was saying to Kristian, we were on the bike, the two of us, and it was Blair that we used to coach, and he was like, what was some of the like mad like bro things that you did in the gym, Kristian? And Kristian was like, I wasn't really a bro. And I was like, I was a bro, like I wore the belt, I had the anabolic window, like
straps.
I ate chicken and rice, like I was that guy.
So let's talk through your journey just with this progressively getting worse. When do you, like, what's some of the kind of, where's your mindset at throughout this? Is it just progressively getting worse so you start hiding it more from friends and family, or do you
like it
open
was
up to
always
some friends?
hidden. Like that's the thing with like eating disorders, are very, very secretive as well. So my best friend Carly, we probably both like, she probably had an idea because I spent the most time with her and I tell her a lot, but even still it would kind of be like in denial, like wee bits, but never really 110% the full truth.
So you also went to therapy. Did this have a part to play with this, or was that
was through like recovery? Yeah.
So let's fast forward then. When you get hospitalized and you're in there, they're kind of helping you out. Talk us through that experience then. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so when I obviously like phoned the doctors and I told them, they'd obviously asked like my weight and stuff, and I spoke to somebody on the phone, and when I went to see the doctor, she was pretty much like, we need to take you into hospital right now and start refeeding you because you're at risk of refeeding syndrome, which is basically, so this can actually happen to anyone that's not been eating sufficient amount of food. I think it's for 3 days. But like it's to do with like the chemical like imbalances in your body. When you start eating again, it can throw them all off and you can actually like end up having a heart attack, like your internal organs failing. So they'd said, we need to immediately take you into hospital to put you on a ECG so that we can monitor you whilst we start feeding you again, because you're so dangerously underweight. So when I went into hospital, I got to, in North Ayrshire, we don't have a specific like eating disorder unit. It's a mental health hospital that you go into with people that have got like severe bipolar, like lots of different mental health problems. And when I went in, I was there I think for about 2 hours, and when they took my heart rate and everything and my blood sugars and my blood pressure, they'd said like your organs are already shutting down before we've even started refeeding you. So I got rushed away to A&E, and then I went into ICU, and I was in ICU I think for 3 days on like a drip and attached to a heart rate monitor and things, and then they put me onto the hospital wards. I was in there I think for another 4 days, and then I spent 7 weeks after that in a mental health hospital, and that was enough for me to be like, I need to sort this out, because probably being in ICU didn't even, not that it didn't scare me, that was a wake up call. But
what age are you here? Like
24.
Right, okay, so what's I'd imagine right? friends, 25? Family and Kristian, like everyone's pretty worried, but are you just like, I'll be out tomorrow and I'll start cracking on? No,
I think I knew at that point, like, okay, right, this is quite serious, although I don't think it really quite hit home. I was like, right, okay, I'm being monitored by like 2 different wards. Like I had to go for like a liver biopsy because they thought that I'd been taking like ecstasy, because there was that much like damage in my liver that it looked like I had a chemical imbalance, but it was just to do with like all the like electrolytes and just how malnourished that I was. So like I had to go for an ECG and stuff. So I was like shit, this is much worse than like, by that point I knew I had a problem. I wouldn't have phoned the doctors, but I didn't think it was that bad. And then I think it was actually going into the mental health ward, where at first I was like terrified. I was like, oh my God, like do not leave me alone in here. And at the end, like it was at first, but then when I was there for 7 weeks, I got to know all the patients and like know like who had like different like personalities at certain times of the day and stuff. And I was actually quite emotional leaving. Like there was a woman, like I left her like my dressing gown, Kristian bought her cigarettes and everything at the start, where I was terrified, but at the same time I was like, I never want to have to do that again. As whereas like when I was leaving, there was a girl with anorexia that got admitted, and they were saying, the nurses in the hospital were saying to me, this is her 4th time being admitted. And I was like, oh really? I'm not letting that happen.
Sorry to interrupt today's episode. Just really quickly, if you haven't already, consider leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify. It means the world to me. It's the easiest way to support the show, and it's free to do. It's going to take you less than 10 seconds, so why not do it? If you don't know how to do it, just go on the podcast page, click the 3 wee dots, 5 stars, mean the world. It would be greatly appreciated. Right, enough of that. Let's get back to the show. And then from there, like, what was the hardest thing going through all that at that time?
Probably admitting it, phoning the doctors and like starting the whole process.
What would your advice be to anyone that's sort of going through that? Is it, and this is always a hard one, because it's like, could you go back and really have that conversation with yourself to make you make that leap, or did the pain have to get so bad that you make the choice yourself?
Yeah, it's a hard one, because I definitely think, like, there was times where, like, my mum had hinted and Kristian had hinted. Kristian said that I was so convicted that, like, he would maybe think there was something wrong, and then I'd be so good at being like, he would always like, so like, I think that the person themselves does really have to want to change, but at the same time, I think you still always know deep down. So if I could go back now, it would be just talk more about it. Don't be ashamed about it. Like, not that it's normal, like, not to normalise it, but like, it is, like, there's so many people struggling with it now, and the more that you can talk about it and realise that, like, it is normal, easy it is. We've actually got 2 twins working with us right now.
Yeah, so they used to go to my spin class.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so
yes.
I usually run by them when I do the paper cup run club, when I went there a couple of weeks or months back, and I think it's incredible that they are working with you guys and
they're
seeing their journey. It's amazing. It's honestly so cool to see, because you're right, you see walks of life in the gym. And did you ever feel like there was any extreme judgment from other people, or did you not feel the judgment too much? Was it self-judgment?
No, self-judgment.
Was it always within self? You never had too much external?
No.
Which is interesting. So I think as you said, how many people this can affect, and the lack of support or lack of awareness maybe around it, I think you're right, the more conversations that can be had, maybe that sparks more people opening up and going, you know what, let me look at things. So let's talk about the road to recovery then, or the road to like gaining. What you at now? What weight you at? Like 14 more kilos than where you started with. And not only that, but more so how your body's performing and what you're able to do, how your strength, the podium, Hyroxes, ultras, marathons, all that. Did you ever think that would be something you'd be capable of at that moment in time?
No, like, I think that was one thing growing up. Like, I never had a lot of belief in myself, and I think probably overcoming anorexia, like, showed me that I could do anything.
First win in life.
Yeah.
Where do you think your lack of self-belief came from?
I don't really know. Like, I suppose growing up, like, never ever been like the best at anything, but not that I was ever bad at anything, or that anybody ever told me that I was, but I suppose it was just like ideas that I'd built up in my head.
Okay, self-belief's the biggest thing, isn't it? I mean, you guys will know the amount of clients that come through. It's like usually the common pillar that we all work within. It's like, oh, I can't lift that weight, can't do that exercise, can't do that run. It's like, well, why not? Not? So what does your journey look like when you come out the hospital? Like, so talk us through what some of the things that you had to work on. Therapy was obviously a big one then. How was that experience then?
Weird at first, but I really enjoyed it. Like, a lot of it just like unpicking things from your past, talking about like childhood. Like, some of it at the time I was kind of like, why are we speaking about like what school was like and stuff? Like, they ask you about like getting bullied I never got bullied at school, but they ask you like all this stuff, because they're obviously trying to work out where like the deeper rooted beliefs and things come from. So like, I actually think like anybody should go and do it. Like, Kristian's been for therapy as well. When he was training for, was it the Dalesman, he went to just learn more about himself and why he is the way he is and why he reacts and deals to things. And because I think like we all have our ways of dealing with things and funny wee tics and triggers that we have, and it's just like being able to recognise when you're doing that. Like, even still sometimes, like, we'll go out, like, me and Kristian were out for food in Adam not that long ago, and we'd bumped into somebody that we hadn't seen in quite a long time, and there had been like a kind of like thing had happened like inside of our business, and there'd been a bit of a fallout, and when we bumped into this person, I hadn't realised how much it had actually affected me. And we were chatting away, and it was nice when we met them, but afterwards we sat down to order food, and this was, I think, like at the beginning of the year, we sat down to order food, and I just started being like, oh my god, I was just overthinking like something that hadn't happened to me in a long time, and eventually just let Kristian just going to pick something for me, because I knew that there was something else wrong with me, but I hadn't quite processed what it was yet. And I'm now good at recognising, right, when I'm doing that with food, it's not actually to do with food or me controlling my weight, it's me trying to hide an emotion somewhere else that I'm not quite recognising and dealing with yet.
Yeah, you've not unpacked.
Yeah.
Brought it to the forefront. Are you able to talk about anything within your therapy and like the lessons in that? Are you okay with kind of diving into some of that?
Yeah.
So I think they're quite, like, when me and James used to do the podcast, he went through it live and he was very kind of open about his experience and that sort of stuff, which was very interesting to see how like weird things that happens when you're 7 or 8 may roll over into your 16, 19, and then the next chapter of your life in your 20s. What was maybe some of the biggest lessons that you've taken away then?
Suppose like a lot of it for me was like losing my sister very, very young. My cousin passed away 4 years after that. He passed away from cancer as well, and he was only 16. And then we didn't see my brother for 5 years. My brother kind of went missing out of our life, so a lot of it for me was like to do with like losing people in my life and kind of not knowing maybe where I like stood with people and needing validation from other people because I was worried about losing people.
And did that, what's like the coping part of that? Was it just is recognising majority of the battle?
What do you mean by that?
Like if it, like, so, you know, these are maybe some of the things that's been the lessons for you. How have you managed to work on that for yourself?
Now, so I suppose now it's more just like acknowledging it and finding other ways to actually believe in myself and realising that like I do have good people in my life. Like just people, yeah.
I liked one of your posts that you've noticed as you get, like you do your 30 lessons at 30 and stuff, and one of the big ones for me was also realising that your friend circle can get smaller and your circle of people who you trust does start to dwindle, but it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've told this in the podcast before, but I remember my head teacher at high school, this is how powerful this talk was. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but I remember him, I think it was second year or third year, and he stood up on stage and he goes, "You'll never be surrounded by this many people with the similarities to where you are at this point in life. Because as you become an adult like me, your friendship and your family and everything would just get smaller and smaller." And I was like, what a weird thing to say. And then that sticks out to me so much. And I'm like, wow, Mr. Ferguson was right.
It's so true though, isn't it?
Has that been a hard lesson for you? Or have you kind of managed to deal with it?
Not really, because I think it was at first, like I remember at first like being like upset to Kristian, like I've got hardly any friends now. Like, but that was as I was growing as a person and starting to realise that a lot of the people that I had in my life weren't actually friends. They were like acquaintances that I liked partying with at the weekend and stuff. And like a big part, like to kind of go back to like what we unpacked at therapy, was like that kind of like low self-belief and esteem. There was like a need for me to be liked, which is why like I always wanted to be
in the room,
good at things, and why like even like with like the control thing, like with like food and stuff in my body, it was almost like I had to be like the best anorexic. Like, and now I suppose like you could look at it another way, like I'm now like doing fitness and it's
well,
like
channeled the energy.
Yeah, so it's just like putting it into a different.
It's a very important lesson, I think. Like they always say, like there's no inherently good habit and bad habit. A habit's a habit, but you can push that power towards something that's maybe more beneficial. And I think that seems to be what you've done.
Yeah,
kind of taking you to crazy heights so far, and even more so probably to come. So when do you start finding more of the fitness stuff then? Is that because Kristian's doing his thing with it and you're just like, you know what, I'm tag along and then stuff?
Yeah, so like at first, obviously like when I came out of hospital, I wasn't allowed to exercise well and I was desperate to get back to the gym because obviously like exercise has always been a big part of my life, and I think it was a big wake up call for me going into hospital and being told like you can't like they put me in a wheelchair. I wasn't even allowed to move. Like the like bed was so near the toilet so that like I couldn't walk. Like I had to be warm at all times so I wasn't burning excess energy. And even when I came out of hospital, at first I wasn't allowed to exercise, and then I was allowed to go for a walk, and then eventually when they were like you can go back and lift weights 3 times a week, like I was just so chuffed to be back in the gym, and I was like I never want to lose like this ability to be able to do this again. So then I started obviously lifting weights, and for a while I was very much just like lifting weights was my thing, like, and I was getting stronger, I was eating more. And then we went to see actually Becky that we coach, it's also one of my really good friends. We seen her doing our first ever like Hyrox sim, and I remember watching her thinking I could never do that. Like watched her do her first ever half marathon, was like nah, like not for me, I don't do that. And then started doing like some wee bits of conditioning at the end of like workouts and things, but still wasn't ever really that bothered about doing it. But I think that was a belief thing again, because I was almost like, right, I've now got comfortable here lifting weights, I know that I'm good at it, I don't want to push myself out of that comfort zone. And then it was when I started running with Kristian and realising that I was quite good at it, that I kind of started leaning into doing more stuff and being like, right, okay, well, if I want to get better, like I have to be a wee bit shit for a while.
Do you think the barrier for that was there anything with, because if you look at conditioning, as the kind of fitness space is growing. It was a way to burn fats, a way to burn energy, a way to burn calories. Did you ever see it like that?
No, well, exercise definitely, like I was very aware of like energy in versus energy out, but it was more walking for me rather than actually like lifting weights or conditioning or anything. So for me, actually, like, it's funny that you say that, because it actually very much helped my relationship with foods, getting into conditioning and the more aerobic stuff that I did, because I now don't like getting into a session and feeling shit. I can recognise when so I can recognise when I've not fueled properly, and I'm probably now the opposite, where I actually get a wee bit panicky sometimes if I like haven't fuel properly for a session, or like in the morning, like before I go to the gym, if I've not had a Pop-Tart or a bagel, I've already got in my head like this is going to be a shit session, so like it's a priority now, but it's almost like it's really given food a purpose for me. So it's like kind of changed my whole outlook on it, where quite often like people would just assume that somebody that's had an eating disorder, that exercise wouldn't be a healthy thing for them. For me, like the more that I've leaned into doing more aerobic stuff and more conditioning work and more endurance sort of work, the better and better my relationship with food's got.
Oh, absolutely. I think and that's such a powerful tool to reframe it that way, because it doesn't have to be this way to lose weight or gain weight. You're seeing it. It's like, I was like the analogy of the car. It's like try to drive to London but on half a tank. It's like, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
You're going to be running on fumes, and that's not a good place to be. See, just taking back to the bodybuilding days or prepping for a bikini show, why did you pull out that?
So my mum and dad had obviously recognised that my relationship with food was like shit, and that I wasn't actually doing it for the right reasons. So they'd obviously been saying to me, and then it was literally like 2 nights before I just decided, I was like, I'm not doing this. But then I never actually did anything about the relationship with food. Like
was it because of what was happening to your relationship with food? Is that why you pulled out because
I never really actually wanted to do it in the first place. I was more just doing it because I thought that I should do it, because I'd been in the gym and people were like, you'd be good at this. And again, it was back to that thing of being liked. It was like, all right, okay, well, if I do this, then
more people will accept me.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It was that complex part. So one thing I want to ask you then, on your to where you're at now, from what you've been through, doing a photo shoot seemed to be, I remember seeing that and I was like, well, that's very interesting, that going through everything that you have. Now, I understand a wee bit more about your story and that, of course, but I would think kind of dialing down to a photo shoot would be maybe a trigger and that sort of stuff. So talk us through that, because I know this was, I think you said underwhelming experience for you.
So underwhelming.
So what was first of all, what was the reason for doing a photo shoot to begin with then? What was it?
So Kristian suggested doing it and I went, that's not my thing, that sounds shit. And as soon as I said that, I was like, well, I might have clients one day that want to do it. Like, how can I say it's not my thing if I've never done it? That's what I said about running. So I thought, do you know what? I'm in a very different mindset now. Like, why not? And I knew that I wasn't a million miles away. Like, I've got a pretty lean physique anyway. It's not like I was having to diet down. Like, me and Kristian were dieting for a photo shoot and I was still in like 1,900 calories. I was hardly like 1,200 calories ales. But at the same time as well, like, even doing that, me and Kristian had just signed up for our first Hyrox when we'd started that prep as well. And towards the end of the prep, I was like, this is so shit, because I was getting into sessions I didn't feel good. There was points where I was getting stitches and I was actually stopping sessions, which I wouldn't have done in the past. I would have just been so in denial of it. But I was like, I actually know that like right now, like I can't go in and do sessions like this and actually like hit and generate the intensity that I want to, because I'm not fueling my body properly.
Yeah. So the photo shoot then, so that was the reason for doing it. Was did you find any sort of old behaviours or triggers come out in the lead up to that? I guess you're in a place where calories were pretty high, which is good.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Totally different experience, but I went into it in a totally different mindset from why I'd went into it in the past as well. And I think that's the thing, like I hear people saying all the time, like, oh, I wouldn't track my calories because this happened in the past. And it's like, yeah, but what frame of mind were you in at that time when you were doing it, and how were you looking at it? Like back to Zoe and Yaz that I was talking to you about, that we've got working with us, like they're now at a point where they're tracking their calories because it keeps them accountable to eating enough food. So it's like looking at the purpose of why you're doing it. And at the time, like I was just so dialed into the process of this is what I do, but I wasn't actually looking at like the behaviours and the things that went along with it, and actually using it as a tool for learning and just thinking about it differently.
So you get to the photo shoots and the I mean, don't get me wrong, it's something I've said in the podcast as well, but photo shoots can get they can be a seller for coaches, and then there's the other side of coaches who throw shade at it. What's your opinion on the whole experience after doing one then?
I think there's like so many different ways of doing a photo shoot now as well, isn't there? Because you see like not everyone's dieting down and getting dick skin lean. Like you see like girls doing like the confidence shoot and like they're in their underwear and they've maybe like lost a bit of weight and they're feeling good. So I think it all comes down to why you want to do it. I don't think there's a good, bad, right or wrong. It's just making sure that you're doing it for the right purpose. Like me and Kristian have did it with our clients. Well, me and Kristian only married businesses at the start of this year. So for the first time with our clients this year together, and then he's did one previously last year before as well. But I think it has to be, if you're going to do it and get really lean doing it, you have to be in the right frame of mind. I think you have to have spent a good amount of time building muscle, building your relationship with food before you just throw yourself at it. And that's probably where I went wrong with the bodybuilding thing, where I just went straight in, like didn't have a good relationship with myself, was doing it for the wrong reasons, didn't really have any real understanding of nutrition or fueling, and that's when it kind of went down a rabbit hole.
Through that process?
Yeah,
a bit of a coach. So I'd imagine that's like you try the people pleaser within you. It's like I want to paint the full picture, and it's like I'll do it. I'll kind of just follow suit. So tons of growth that you've had. Like I always say, your 20s is something just like. There's my brother actually that I had to remind him of it. He says, I don't know what I want to do with myself, and this was when he was like 25, 26. And I was like, your 20s are just to gather as much experience as you can, and life will figure itself out. So you, throughout your 20s, or from leaving school, it's like college, changing college, or was it uni that you went to business?
So I did interior design, hairdressing, worked for the Red Cross, did the business degrees and apprenticeship through them, and then coaching. Doing
all these things. Did coaching feel different to all these other things?
Yeah, no, I think like the thing with coaching was having Kristian there alongside me, because again, like the self-belief thing always sneaked in and all of these things as well. And there's been so many, even this week, like at the start of this week, I was like, Kristian, I don't know what's wrong with me this week, but I feel like I've just went back to doubting myself again. Like just having him there, I think's massively helped. And I've grown a lot as a person as well. So I've had a lot more belief in myself. But I think through coaching, like the bit that I've found in coaching that I liked about hairdressing was making people feel good. And that's probably where those two things have been very, very similar, but in different ways. And it's allowed me and Kristian as well to build a life that we really want, as well as getting to help people. Yeah,
so it's like a win-win kind of scenario for you both. When do you get into coaching? What do you do? How do you get your first client? How does this all play out?
So me and Kristian, when was it? We bought a house 2021 maybe, and I'm in the kitchen painting furniture, and him and his mum come in, and I just go, would you think I was mad if I quit uni? And straight away his mum went, yeah. and Kristian just looked at me, and I just burst out crying, and Kristian was like, no, like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And his mum was a bit like, you've only got a year left, because it was like a 3-year degree or a 4-year honours, like one more year and you'll have a degree. And I was like, I hate it. And Kristian was like, you're never going to use it, like, just quit. And at that point, I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. Like, I would still have my job in the Red Cross, so it wasn't like I just quit and that was me. And I kind of thought about doing like floristry, and then Kristian eventually went, what about coaching? And I was like, that's your thing. And he went, Eilidh, shut up. And I was like, oh, I would like to do that, but I just always had in the back of my head, like, Kristian's a coach. Like, I don't know why I thought that I couldn't do it, because he did it.
I think it felt like you would overshadow you, because it's all he's ever done.
I don't even think that. I just think like, I don't know, I just told myself this stupid story. I don't know. And then, that was kind of it. Kristian was like, well, I'll pay for you to do your PT course. I quit my job. We went to Spain for a month, and we were in Spain. I'd actually lined up to go and work at a gym in Ayr, and a couple of people would message me about coaching, and Kristian was like, just take them online, and then when you get back, you can transition them into the gym. And then we were in the airport on the way back from Spain, and Kristian was like, Eilidh, do you actually want to go and work in the gym? And I was like, I don't know, I just kind of thought that's what you had to do first. And he was like, well, I'll help you build a business online. And it all just kind of went from there. And then obviously I went and worked in the upgraded coach. Well, didn't work in the upgraded coach, worked with the upgraded coach, built my business up. And then at the beginning, at the end of last year, me and Kristian made the decision to merge businesses.
So that seems to be one of the two hardest relationships, like picking a partner for life and picking a business partner for life. Me and Jillian's went through this recently as well. What's so you guys met quite early on, I think, if I remember from, it was either Kristian's post or your post, that you don't quite remember the first time meeting. So how has your relationship been kind of throughout the years and that sort of stuff? Like why do you think you have clicked so much and that sort of thing?
So I remember when we first met, the next day Kristian's like that to me, Eve, isn't it? I was like, nope. And then we went for an Nando's and I was like, this guy's actually quite funny. And then we just got along really, really well. Obviously, like at the time, like we were both into fitness massively. We're both like quite similar but quite different at the same time as well. But like we've had our ups and downs, especially when I wasn't well. Like I wasn't like, even like before I was like physically unwell, like when I was struggling with a relationship with food and stuff, like there was times where I'd be a moody bitch, like I wasn't.
I can imagine that bleeding out in other ways,
yeah,
but trying to mask it and it just being tension in a relationship type of thing. So how does the relationship evolve in that with you guys then?
So we were like really, really close for the first couple of years, and we actually went through a point when I wasn't well where we like very nearly split up. But that then made us closer than we ever have been, and that obviously then like escalated into us buying a house and being where we are now. So like so I'm grateful for everything that happened. Was that bit like so I remember a moment where me and Jillian sat down and we had the talk about like life. I think you have these imaginary desires and dreams of like, yeah, like we'll have a kid with that, but you don't really fully have a conversation about it. Is that what happened for you guys then? Was that like where you came together and started to realise that you both do want each other in that life? Yeah. Good. And then the decision to merge businesses then. Well, decision to buy a place, that's a big one. Was that just like a no-brainer? It's like, here, what you get in the property market? Yeah. That was it? Just kind of was like... Go for it. Yeah. We were living with Kristian's mum and dad at the time, so it was kind of like just the next natural step because we were already living together. What's the hardest bit living with Kristian? Feeding him. Feeding him, is it? Because even going out here today, I was like giving him instructions for his lunch and he wasn't listening, but he wouldn't eat if I wasn't there. And then he'd be like ravenous, but then he'd be starving. And then he'd be phoning me, me mum went out for lunch last Thursday, and I answered the phone and he didn't even say hi, he just went, I'm hungry. My mum was pissing herself. So you're the proper feeder then? Yeah. You're the feeder in the house. That's funny. I need to give him stick for that. So merging, let's come on to like this part, because I think this is it'll be very interesting to see how this is, because this is still a new thing for you guys. I'm sure there's lots of lessons still to come. Mm-hmm. Was it scary to merge, or did it feel natural to merge? Bit of both. Right. Like, so when we were in Bali, we caught up with like two coaches that we know. One, Damien, who's like very manana, very chilled out, and then David, who has a business with his brother, who's like really quite the opposite. And we kind of took like bits from both of theirs. Like Kristian was like, we need to chill out a wee bit more, we need to be a bit more manana. But at the same time, then when we went and met David, and he was a bit like, why the two of you not working together? Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, and he was talking about what his brother does for him and things. And it was kind of then that we were like, well, if we took a bit of what both of them are doing, we could afford to be a wee bit more chilled out and take a bit more time out if the two of us, or if that's what we thought at the time. Now that we've came together, we've realised it doesn't quite work like that, and we're probably a bit more like David. But like, yeah, no, but it's been really good, but it's been tough at first. What's the hardest part? What was the hardest part? Sorry. So at the start, the hardest bit was probably just obviously I'd built a business with all females. Kristian's business was obviously like a lot of people wanting to do more like ultra endurance events, like stepping into doing big events. So actually like having to tell the girls, by the way, like, I know this isn't what you signed up for, but we're merging business. We didn't make them come over. They obviously had the option to come and see what they thought, but that was obviously hard because a lot of them hadn't signed up for Kristian. At the same time, a lot of Kristian's clients hadn't signed up for me as well. So probably that was the hardest bit, that. And when we first merged businesses, I then started going, oh, what if we break up? Like, you'll have a business and I won't. And Kristian was like, well, that's ridiculous, because obviously half the clients are probably going to go with you anyway, and we're not going to break up. You start playing all the worst case things that like I would have never have said. He was like, where did that come from? You're just like, I guess it's over. And then like after that, it was kind of like finding our roles, because when you've been so used to doing everything in the business, naturally at first you're still trying to do everything, so that was kind of hard, just kind of finding, divide and conquer. Yeah. How has it played out then? What did you end up? How is it working just now? So Kristian kind of like forefronts like marketing. He delivers like our weekly call every week. I'm head of athletic performance, so like my job's like actually like doing everyone's programs, making sure that everyone has like a goal that they're working towards. More like nutrition. We both like obviously do like fitness, nutrition, coaching, but like I'm more kind of like on the programs, like, are we hitting targets and goals in the gym? And Kristian's more like hitting mindset, hitting the weekly calls, and then we're both coaching one-to-one as well.
Together. So obviously Ready for Anything is like the name that you went with, and I think it was that something that, what was yours before? Like, did you have like
Enhanced by you, so obviously wasn't going to be enhanced by you.
You know, telling them, come this side. So what does, and I quite like this when I asked Kristian this question, but what does it mean to you, Ready for Anything?
I'd say Ready for Anything is a mindset. I wouldn't say it's like, quite often when we say Ready for Anything, people just assume big event.
What is it?
Yeah. But I would say it's definitely a mindset. It's about being able to do anything that you put your mind to. It doesn't necessarily have to be in fitness, because I think like doing big events, doing fitness has taught me a lot about what I can do elsewhere in life and leaning more into fear and discomfort.
What do you think you need to kind of go through then to get into that mindset?
I think you need to just throw yourself at things that scare you. And I don't think it matters what level you're at. Like, we've got people that, like, for example, like one of our girls just now trains in our gym at home. She's never ever been in a gym until last week. A few weeks ago she came and met me in a gym near us, and then like she was on holiday and her and her partner went to a gym. She's now going to sign up to a gym. So for her, that's just getting out her comfort zone, and it's about then continuing to do that. So like, keep the momentum up, just keeping it up. Like, for someone else it might be like our client Travis. He recently did an Ironman, and he actually did a vlog on it. It was really good, and he made a really good point. He said the reason why he signed up for it was because he's done Hyrox, and he knew that he was quite confident at running. Like, it scared him, but he knew that he could do it. As well as like with the Ironman, he was like, he couldn't swim. Like, it scared the shit out of him. He was like, this is something that's actually bigger than me, that I know if I miss with, then there's a chance that I might not be able to do it. I can't just scrape through it. And I think it's just throwing yourself more at stuff like that you do have a wee bit of self-doubt about, to build that belief up in yourself. Because even like before I did like Manchester Marathon, or like our first ever Hyrox, when Kristian was telling everyone that we were going to like podium and get first, and I was like, fucking stop saying that. Like, yeah, but at the same time I was like, do you know what? Because I remember we went for coffee after the podcast, and he was like, my goal's to podium at the Glasgow Hyrox, and then I think he's ended up doing, what was it he's done? What one was it? So the first one that we did was Milan. Milan, that was it. So we're going to win. Yeah. You're like, I've never ran before. And then we had never even done a Hyrox before. We made an arse of it. Like, we ran in like too early on like the third lap. I could hardly move the sled. It was a disaster. And then as we were running round after we'd ran in the wrong way, Kristian was going, we fucked it. And that was actually like the first time where I was like when I found myself going, we don't know what race anyone else has ran. And I was like, oh, where's this person coming from? And then we kind of picked it back up, and we ended up coming third. Yeah. At that event, and that probably built a lot of belief up in me that moment. But yeah, like, Kristian's always been very like, this is just what we're going to do, as whereas it's probably only been in more recent years where I've started to find that confidence in myself to be like, yeah, I can do that, but that's only by throwing myself at stuff that I thought that I couldn't do ever. Everything that you said there, I think we need to do some hard stuff to build that callus in your mind, because if you've got self-doubt and self-belief, or you lack self-belief in yourself, you have to do maybe the simple thing is working out at the home, going out the steps, and that builds momentum, carries over into other things. So that there's no reason why, like, you've done all these incredible things. What's something that scares you just now? Scares me just now, triathlon. Are we talking about like events? Yeah, or anything that comes to mind? In terms of events, definitely triathlon. Kristian keeps, I actually said I was going to do one, and I put a post up at the start of this year saying I was going to do one before it was 30, and then we started looking into getting bikes and things, and the bikes were really, really expensive for me, because Kristian needed a bike as well for us to do it, and I kind of use that as my get out, but the swimming in it scares the shit out of me, which is ironic because I swam when I was younger, but swimming in the sea or the open water just terrifies me. Did it terrify you more now with the CrossFit stuff that went on? And then there was that Ironman Ireland, was it, as well, where 3 people drowned. So I said to Kristian, I was like, I think that's just like reinforced like that fear that I already had. Well, I think that's probably one of the next big challenges that you might need to take Kristian on. Kristian keeps telling me that as well, and I'm like, I did say it out loud. I'm like, maybe I could like play it safe and do a pool one first. Why not? Why not start there? That might be what you need to build the self-belief. So anything else, any other things that kind of come to mind? Do you fancy the Keltman or anything like that? Any of the big extreme things? Or you're like, I'll start with the triathlon first? I mean, I can't say that I fancy it, but I would never say never. What about like in the
like the Hyrox world and anything like that?
So we're doing our first ever solo. Well, supposed to be. I don't know because the flights are so expensive for Madrid.
I know. Me and Jill were going to do Madrid, but it's like 400 quid to get out there.
Mental.
I know.
So we're kind of in two minds whether we're going to do it or not. We're going to see what we can get sorted. We're kind of talking about maybe like we'll fly to Barcelona and get the bullet train. So, but at the same time as well, I don't want that to be my get out because I know that I'm also shitting myself for doing my first solo and not knowing that I've got Kristian there to
push something or put power.
Yeah, just like having somebody there by your side or something, just a bit more comfortable about that. But that definitely is, like, I'm nervous about that.
What about non-fitness related? What comes into mind?
What we're doing at the end of the year with our house, I'm shitting myself.
Right.
Like, it's something I've always wanted to do, but now that it's happening, I'm like, oh my God.
So what's the plan?
The plan is that there isn't really a plan. Like, so we've got the guy PJ came and looked at our house. Like, he's going to like put it up for rent. They deal with it. We don't have to do anything.
Right.
Me and Kristian will fly out to Dubai for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to go to Hong Kong. We're doing Hyrox in Hong Kong.
Oh, amazing.
And then we're going to fly to Bali. We want to spend Christmas in Bali, but we've not really got a real plan after that. We're like maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months in Bali, and then just see what happens from there. But our house won't be ours anymore, so we don't have a house to come back to. So
what's the overall game plan? To try and travel for a year or
a year to 2 years, and then we'll eventually, hopefully, well, we will. I'm not going to say hopefully because Kristian will shout at me for saying that. We will buy a house somewhere else,
UK?
abroad, ideally.
Right.
Yeah, so we're thinking maybe Spain or Majorca, but that's part of the reason why we want to travel more, because we'd originally said Bali, and then my mum was like, would you want to bring kids up in Bali? And at first I was like, yeah, obviously, like, that'd be so cool. And then the more that I thought about it, I was like, I don't know, and it's quite far away from our mum and dad, and as weird as we're like, Majorca or Ibiza is manageable, it's like far enough away that we can get heat, but close enough that you're not 15 hours away in a plane.
What's you guys got the operation down business wise then? He's quite confident with that.
Yeah,
that's good. What did you need to do in the business world to kind of keep the coaching operation running smoothly, to give you the confidence to do that?
I think that's probably just come from like years of Kristian doing it.
I think it's reps.
Yeah, like literally just doing the reps, because I would say that I still have more self-doubt in business than him. Like, not that he doesn't have his moments, but
so is he the yogi in the relationship? He's like, yeah, chill. Who was it you used? What was the word you used there? The yoga, the person you met in Bali, the two people.
Oh, what was it I said? I can't even remember now. Did I say he was chill vibes or something? Manana.
So Kristian's more manana there then.
And that kind of side of things, yeah, definitely. But I think that's just because he's been doing it for 7 years, as whereas I've been doing it for like 2 and a bit years. I think it is just. So
I'm fortunate enough to interview tons of guests with very successful business, and there's a common theme coming out that time served, I think was David Hatt's, what he said, time served in any industry is really what kind of separates those who do well and those who don't. Like, sometimes it is just reps, and the kind of more you think about that, it carries over to anything. The more you run, the better you'll be at running. Yeah. It's kind of hard to fuck up, because as long as you kind of keep doing it, you'll get better at it. So that's good. That's really exciting then. Is there any destination that you're set on? So Bali and Dubai. Is there any other places that's kind of at the top of the list?
So we've been to Bali twice last year, so we loved it so much, and we never actually seen that much of it, because we ended up like, everyone goes, oh, you were away in Bali and it was great, you must have done so much, and we're like, no, we actually went to Bali and worked more, like we just worked and trained. So we actually want to go this time and see it. And then I don't know, we'd like to spend more time in Europe, traveling about, but we're just going to go with the flow. Like, I actually quite like the idea, although it scares me of not having a plan.
Just been
and I think it's because I've always been the kind of person that needs to have a plan. Of like, this is quite cool to just be like, fuck it, we'll see what happens.
Aye, no, good, and that is really exciting. I think it's definitely a dream most people look up to and most people want to do. And the thing that holds everyone back is like, you can't, you've bought a house now, like, or you can't do that because you've got a family or whatever. But everybody can do anything. Yeah,
well, I think that was it. We've always told ourselves that story of, we've got a house now and it's quite cool. We can go away and travel for a month and then come back to the house. And we're like, this is just costing us a lot of money. Like, yeah, it's scary putting the house up for rent. But because even like when we spoke to the guy about putting our house up for rent, he kept saying to us, you know that like the house won't be yours anymore. You can't get too emotional about it. And we're like, we're fully accepting now. Like,
coming in,
it's
like,
not ours.
Don't touch that wall. Keep those paintings up. Are you taking all your furniture and all that out? Or is it going to be furnished in that?
We're going to take everything out. So I think we're just going to sell everything and just accept that we're not here. Like, really just make it official, which I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. It's quite scary, but...
Good. So let's talk about you guys competing, so Hyrox and all that sort of stuff, the events and that you've done. Is there any goals to... Well, first things first, what was the Hyrox Championships like?
Amazing.
Must have been pretty cool.
Amazing, although we both ended up with norovirus right
I know.
after.
I think the stress and the hype and the anxious feeling of just being at that, I can only imagine.
I don't even know though, like me and Kristian keep saying, like, we would love to, like, have had the excuse of going, oh, it affected our race or everything, but we honestly had the best race ever. Like, we felt great because people kept saying to us after, do you think you would have done better if, like, that hadn't been hanging over you? And I'm like, we actually had the race of our life. Like,
that's what I mean. I think it's more the come down of everything.
Yeah, it was like 4 hours after.
Just getting thingy. So are you wanting to get back to that again this year, or is that tick the box for you?
No, we want to go back next year because Kristian said to me, what happens if we go to Madrid and you qualify for the females? Would you do both? And I was like, no, I just want to do
doubles.
Yeah.
You think you got a better chance at performing better at doubles? Yeah,
definitely. I think for my size as well, like, because me and Kristian actually had the conversation with John when we first started, because I weigh 47 kilograms, and compared to, like, some of the women, like, when it comes to moving the pro weight, it's just it's tough. And when we were racing after Turin, we'd came back and I'd said to John about, like, the sleds, like the push and the pull and the wall balls just being my biggest weakness, and I was like, I think I need to pack on some size and get stronger. And he went, nah, Kristian does. He was like, Eilidh, for your size, it's pretty impressive that you can move and pull that sled, like, in the first place. And I was a bit like, oh, whoa, but it doesn't mean I don't want to get stronger.
No, I think Hyrox is built for a taller athlete for sure. Same with swimming. I guess that's maybe one of your fears of swimming. If you look at the best swimmers in the world, long torsos, long legs, and all that sort of stuff, like, that might be one of the challenges with sport, isn't it? It's like but not letting that hold you back. So I think but
where we've got the advantage is I'm strong at running, so a lot of the females aren't as fast as me, so it just means that Kristian has to do more grit work when it comes to actually doing the stations, because when we actually look at how we split the stations up, like, Kristian does, like, the majority of the actual, like, horse work and the stations. I take bits so that he can get a break, but I'm literally then going round the track at, like, 100%.
Aye, so you can give it all. That's good. What's the goal with Hyrox then this year?
Definitely first place at Hong Kong.
Do I go for that? Yeah. Why Hong Kong? We're just different place.
So when we picked it, we just thought we couldn't find, because we'd signed up for Madrid. I keep saying Milan. Because we'd signed up for it to do the solo, we needed a big enough gap, and it was the only one that we could get tickets for. And I'd kind of joked about it at first. This was before we'd even, like, set in stone about travelling or anything. And I was like, there's Hong Kong, and Kristian might put it in the credit card, and I thought he was joking and put the laptop down. And he was like, I'm being serious, and it's on his birthday. But then a few weeks later, they actually announced that that's going to be one of the Elite 15 qualifiers. So it's actually worked out quite well that it'll be a really good one to be at as well.
What do you need to do to qualify?
I'm not sure, because it's 1% this year, so it's normally the top 2% at every race. So, like, when we did Turin, I think it was, like, first, second and third, but, like, at Glasgow, I raced Glasgow with Becky. We did females doubles, and I think it was, like, the top 5 could qualify, and that's, I think it depends how many people are actually competing each event, so I don't know what it is at Hong Kong, so I'm just like, if we go for first, then that's us sorted.
So what's the time you just try to get sub 1 hour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You got it?
I think so, yeah.
He's done any sims recently?
Not since the Worlds.
Nah, when it comes to wall balls and the sled and the pool and that, obviously that's watching Gillian do the wall balls at the end of our Madrid one was because we'd practiced them, and I remember at the start she said, these are fucking shit, because the ball's half the size of her.
Yeah.
And then the energy that it takes to get it up, you don't realise that when you're on race day, you're kind of getting towards the end, you're very depleted, and there was a lot of challenges with the wall balls. What's been the biggest difference to help you with them? Because Kristian was saying that when I spoke to him last, that you've came on leaps and bounds, we've been able to kind of smash out them. So what's been from a training perspective, what's helped you with that? I
mean, I don't know if I'd say I'm smashing them out. I'm still pretty shit at them. I'm just not as shit.
You go from shit to not as shit.
But to be fair, I think I did 2 wall balls. We did
the first
Milan.
time. What was it?
2. It was so bad. So the gym that we were in at the time, It isn't the gym that we train in now, but at a wall ball target, but we hadn't even looked up the height, so it was like way smaller. So I'd been just throwing it to height that was nowhere near as high. So when we got to Milan at the end and I threw the ball and it just kept missing, and Kristian said he was just standing there like, I'm going to have to do all these. But then we trained for Turin and we thought that I'd get stronger on them, and we went in to do it again. It was equally as shit. I think I did like 4, but then I managed to do, I think, 18 at the World, so I was like, right, I've come on a long way now, but definitely lots of push press, lots of strict press, and just doing the reps with them. Like I've just, and starting it at a lighter weight, so like obviously when we do mixed doubles it's a 6 kilogram ball, so I've just been building myself up to do as many as I can unbroken with the lighter ball.
All right.
And then once I can do that, I'll go in and do the heavier, but I still use the heavier ball in training as well.
Aye, so hopefully when it gets to the rest day this time you're like, right, I was hitting a higher target, now this is going to be easier.
Yeah.
Smart strategy. So one thing I wanted to ask you on was definitely to do with the running and that sort of stuff. So what, you went from not running, not really liking it, you're a really, really strong runner from the times and everything that you're able to do. What would you say the mistake people make when they come to trying to get better at running? Because definitely a hype with it, 5Ks, 10K races and all that sort of stuff. Tons of people getting into it. Tons of people joining run clubs but going all out. What would you say would be a better strategy for people to pick it up and do pretty well at it?
I think so many people aren't consistent with it at the start and not accepting that it is going to be hard at the start, and it gets easier with time the more that you stick to it. Like even I'd say about last October when we first started working with John, there was a point where I just thought maybe I'll just pack this running malarkey in. Like I was hating it, like. And it's just the more consistent you can be with it, the easier that it gets. Definitely a lot of what we see with runners is that, like, we always say most runners run too fast when they should be running slow, and too slow when they should be running fast, like one pace runners. So they don't ever run particularly hard and fast or slow and easy. They're just always kind of running in that middle zone. So like doing a lot more actually like easier work and not fucking yourself on every single run. And then like on the hard stuff, going really, really hard and making sure that you're taking like an easy day and a hard day, so not doing like lots of like hard runs back to back, or like moderate to hard days back to back, doing like an easy run one day, maybe giving yourself a rest day, or if you're running the next day then doing a hard day. But I think the biggest thing is just being patient with it. Like the whole thing that made me consistent was just going out and doing it with Kristian and running at the pace that he had to run at and not really thinking about it. But even at the start, like I made so many mistakes because I went out and just ran every run hard. When you look at my average heart rate for any run that I went out and did by myself, I had this rule in my head that 450 was my pace. Didn't matter how far I was running. I could be running 5k and I could be running 15k. I just had to hit 450, and by the end of every run, like I was cooked.
No wonder. What's your pace just now? What have you been able to get your pace to?
For what that kind
of for the runs and that
in like
that
zone 2. Mm-hmm. So my actual zone 2 pace sits about 450.
Is it now?
Now, but that wasn't my zone 2 pace at the time. But I was doing zone 2 runs then. But like me and Kristian always say it's really funny because I'm really efficient at actually like longer distance running. But as we start to push top end speed, like my 10k pace is like 417. As whereas like Kristian's zone 2 is the same as mine, but he can run like a 350 like pace for like a 10k where I just couldn't do that because my legs just cannot go that fast.
Do you have any aspirations to like beat a 5k time or a 10k time or anything like that, or are you more in the longer stuff now?
Nah, I'm quite open to whatever. I'm not really. I'm like, I always say I'm not a runner. Like so many people say to me, like I've heard people saying like about me being a runner. I only started running 2 years ago, so I still don't really see myself as a runner. Like we ran a 10k race a couple of weeks ago and I nearly talked myself out of it because it was pissing down with rain. I didn't want to go. I was such bad vibes before we went. I was in such a bad mood, and then we got there and I came third and like won money and stuff, and I was a bit like, how has this happened? Like,
do you not think that like there is, you're starting to, obviously this is still new for you, but it sounds like you're starting to find your own rhythm in the fitness space, and running is obviously something that you have, whether you want to call it a natural gift or not, but you have definitely a talent towards that through the hard work that you're putting into it. Do you think it makes sense to maybe double down on it and see what you're, because that's you, I'm not saying that you're half-arsing it, but that's you like training for it, but not really.
Well, we do like a lot of speed work when we're doing like our Hyrox, so I do put a lot of work into like, I've maybe not set like a specific goal for like a 5k or a 10k, but like the work that we were doing, like last week I ran I think said 80k in my watch, but that wasn't including the running that we did in conditions. I probably hit about 90k of running. So like when I'm saying like I'm not really like I'm running a lot plus like hitting weights like 3 times a week. Like me and Kristian are training like 10 to 12 hours a week
so there's
at the minute for Hyrox. So like, and I think that's the biggest thing that people forget with Hyrox, is like 50% of the event is running. So if you're not a good runner, then
you're screwed.
Yeah.
So that's an argument people make for Hyrox, that the stations are pretty much whatever, but the best thing you can do going into it is being good at running. Are you fully on board with that as well, or do you think you kind of need to, if you had to pick one or the other, but more emphasis should be put on the running than the actual lifting weights in the gym in a prep?
I think that's a really hard question because there's so much to a Hyrox. Like there's strength, there's power as well, because you can be a really good runner, but if you can't move the sled, then
I keep a few people have made comments after we done Madrid, and it's like, you just need to be a good runner and you can do that race, and I'm like, no mate, no chance.
No.
Maybe like one running under fatigue is different to running, right?
Yeah, it's different gravy.
Guys, try and do burpees and walking lunges and then do your 1k time. It's like being able to endure that pain and get your recovery to kick in. Like that's a real skill to try and
I think what you said there is like probably key. You have to be good at enduring pain. And that's maybe like where a wee bit of like my like anorexia brain comes in.
You've got it. Yeah. Pain caves. I've been here before.
Because I always think like endurance, like because it is an endurance sport, but it's not all physical. It's like what can you endure mentally as well when you're going around that, because you've you know yourself, you've done a Hyrox, like you've so many different like emotions going around that track. Like one minute you're like, this is fucking amazing, and then the next minute you're like, this is shit, this is so hard, and then you have like another wee burst.
As well, when people fly by, you're like, what, do I need to run faster? And you're like, and then they gas themselves out. It's such a mind game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mind games that go into it. Would you guys ever do anything on the strength side of things with like your competitions like Affix or anything, or maybe making your own? Have you got any sort of ideas to do that?
Yeah, so me and Kristian are actually talking about doing a thing called the trial. So we've been like putting it together, but we spoke about it for so long, we've not actually did it because we've did so much for Hyrox that we've not had any time to test it. So I'm like, we need to actually test it to see if this is realistic. So we've got like a strength element of it. I think there was like so many reps in bench, so many reps in squat. There's a condition element, and then it's like a 16k run within, I can't remember what the time was that we set. So that is actually my job, that I need to go on that. But I need to work out when we've not got an event so that I can actually trial it, or maybe just speak to John and say, right, can we actually fit this into my training? But like in terms of like other competitions, like like I've always said, like I would love the idea of doing like a powerlifting competition or something, which is obviously so different to doing like Hyrox and running. But that is really where my love for like training started. It was always not powerlifting, but like strength, like hip thrusting 3 times my body weight. Like I would say pound for pound, like I'm pretty strong, but definitely like through doing Hyrox, it just not been as much of a focus because you're trying to focus on building strength and endurance. So right now, like in the block of training that me and Kristian are doing, we've obviously just came off of a massive endurance block with running the 50k. So like our kind of 2 like more specific areas that we're working on right now are strength and speed.
Yeah, and the like power output type of thing. You mentioned John a few times. How important has it been having a coach throughout this?
Important, honestly. Like see, after Hyrox World, John said to me and Kristian that he was taking 6 to 8 weeks off of coaching to let us kind of like just chill and do our own thing, and he was having a baby, so that was obviously like his paternity. I was like a lost puppy. See, even though I know how to write a program, and like see, just having somebody else there, like the self-doubt that you have when you're doing it for yourself, you start thinking, am I doing too much? Am I burning myself out? Is this not enough? Even though you know, and if it was a client, it's so different when it's yourself, and you would think
intuition's crazy with your own program.
And even like things like last week John had programmed us in an hour and a half running into an hour and a half on the bike. Like I would never want to program that in for myself. Like
you'd write it when you're feeling good, and when it comes to it's like, yeah, that's too much volume, I need to like chill out.
Or like the assault bike, like I would never program that for myself. I'm like, that is like a torture tool. But when John puts it in, like I just do it.
No, that's good. I think a lot of people like will sit in the fence whether they get a coach or not, but it seems to be, I think, even just
like having somebody else there for perspective, like when you're having a shit day or a tough time, or like what I was saying when I came back with the sleds and was like, I need to get stronger in these, and I was being so hard on myself in the wall balls, and John was like, Eilidh, remember what size you are?
3 times your weight, yeah, more than 3 times your weight. I put up a post, don't know if you guys seen this, where Jill pushed the sled for like she managed to push a length, because going into it was the biggest worry, because I think Jill's 50, she's just over 50 kilo at this point. It was like 3 times the weight, and we were using as heavy a sled as we could here, and it wasn't budging. It's like, look, as soon as it gets to the day, if you want, like, because we were doing it for competing together, never done anything like this since high school, but also like using this as an experience that we can both enjoy. And I was like, give it a go, and she was pushing it. So I got the video of that and I put it up online. People are like calling her trans and all this. She was getting so much hate from it. I'm like, that's so impressive. People are like making it about, oh, but men are stronger than women. It's like, shut up. That's not the whole point of this. It's like the whole point of the achievement of being able to do something.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yourself. Yeah, it's like having the ability to have the strength to do that. So being able to like just budget and move it in the first place, I think it's incredible, because a lot of people lean into it and then their body weight can push the sleds.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So see, from a coaching perspective, what would you say you've learned from programming from John?
Oh my God, so much.
What stands out?
The hard, easy principle, like, especially when it comes to doing, so it's like the idea of having like a hard day followed by an easy day, a hard day followed by an easy day, so never doing 2 hard days back to back, right, so that you can actually recover. So like anytime me and Kristian have got like maybe like a double training day where we've got a really hard running day, we maybe get like a big strength and conditioning session, the next day we'll have like an easy run or an easy session on the bike, so it's almost like active recovery where you're hitting zone 2 work, but you're not actually exhausting yourself further, so your body's actually getting that time to recover, your resting heart rate's coming down, so that coming into the next hard day you're ready to pull the pin and go hard. As whereas like me and Kristian, when we first started training for Hyrox, like we're pretty much just like bodybuilding, doing some random bits of conditioning and going for a run here and there, and we were probably doing like occasionally like an easy session, but it was mainly like moderate to hard sessions all the time, and we were just frying ourselves.
Right. So that's the biggest thing to take away. Imagine you've transferred that into the programs you do for clients as well. That's interesting. It's weird how you just think, if I just keep beating myself up, I'll be better come this race day.
Doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Well, I think the next couple of months for you guys is going to be very interesting. House is going up for sale. Got competitions going in. What's like looking at this time next year? Where would you like to be from a competition point of view and a business point of view?
Competition point of view, qualified for Hyrox Worlds. Well, Hyrox Worlds will be done by then.
When did they do it?
June.
Right,
so
okay.
Having had competed at Hyrox Worlds, looking at what we're doing next, happening. I suppose. Yeah. Potentially doing a triathlon now.
Need to see
I've put it out here now, haven't I?
You need to go for it.
From a business standpoint, I suppose I need to speak to Kristian about that, me calling the shots here, but just doing more of what we're doing. Like, we're at a point now where like the amount of clients that we've got is very manageable between the two of us. We maybe at some point like to get another coach in, so that like me and Kristian can focus more on actually coaching and have somebody that can maybe deliver at weekends and things. Probably be like the next kind of big step for us. Yeah. And then eventually, and I'm putting this out here and making it real, when we buy our house in Majorca, we want to, I was telling Jillian about this when we came in.
She's like, what?
But we want to like build like a big like facility where we can maybe do like, so obviously we've got a retreat this month in September. We did our first retreat in April, but where we can actually run retreats from, have people come out, like use the gym, but we can also have like family and friends come use it. It's a bit of a gym for us. It's almost like a bit of a lifestyle business. It's kind of like the next bit. Like that's maybe not a year down the line. That's maybe like 2.5 years down the line.
Towards though.
Yeah.
How was the retreat since we never really touched on that?
Amazing.
Where did the idea come from?
So we'd seen other people kind of doing retreats, and me and Kristian have obviously been away and travelled a lot, and we'd kind of picked like bits that we'd liked from different things, and we're just like, how cool would that be to actually just run our own and do it with like clients and have people come hang about with us for a week. It was actually the best week of my life. It was
it the whole 7 days?
5 nights, so 6 days.
5 nights out.
Yeah.
What was the best part of the whole thing? What stands out?
The company, to be honest. Like it was actually just like me and Kristian had planned loads for the first retreat, and then just before we went, Kristian spoke to another coach that he knew that did the retreat and said the first time he did one he put too much in, and he was like, actually just let everyone just enjoy the company. So we took a lot of stuff out, and most of the time it was just like having nice food, chilling by the pool, going out for runs, like we had yoga, being in the sun, good conversation, just enjoying the space because it was such a nice space.
Good. And what are you doing this time round?
Pretty similar. Again, we've got the same villa. I think we've got the yoga women coming again. I'm sure it's the same woman that's coming to do yoga. Yeah. What else have we got? Going into Malaga for a day trip. Just good food, chilling. We'll do a bit of a kind of like seminar on the second day, but it's quite chillax. It's nothing like too serious or fun. But loads of people in the last retreat just came out their shells so much. Like obviously the last retreat we had, it was all clients that came, and like the change that we've seen in like quite a few of the people off the back end of it was amazing.
Just seeing them open up. I would imagine maybe even for some people this would be one of the first times they've kind of done something like this on their own.
Yeah, been away on their own.
Yeah, which is it's a big thing. That's a big confidence boost, and then again that unlocks more self-belief in what you can do. The retreat one's an interesting one because I think retreats are really seen as more yogi, hippie stuff. I take mushrooms, psychedelics, going to a room and that sort of stuff. But I see more and more coaches definitely doing it, and I think it's a fantastic idea. Even like community events and that sort of thing. And you guys seem to have a really, really solid community. I guess, see, before we finish up, actually, one question I want to ask you on the community side of things. You went through a bit of a rockier part, like earlier in the year, you were saying. How was that? How did you manage to kind of manage through that, where sometimes you're coaching a large group of people and sometimes a few opinions from people within there can spoil the whole fun for everyone? How was that experience for you guys, and how did you manage to overcome it?
It was tough. I suppose like naturally after kind of like the first like month, some of the people that like weren't really fitting with like the new ethos of the program started to kind of move away. Is
that where it came from? So you were like kind of changing the structure of how the operation was running?
More for like the dynamics of like who we were coaching, because we were more starting to change to, right, we want people who aren't just coming here for accountability. Like we want people that are here and they're ready and they're willing to make change. We'll help them, we'll coach them, but we don't want people that need their hand held. Like we want people that are actually like, no, like I'm ready to do this and this is a priority. So like at the start there were probably some more people that were there more looking for accountability and maybe weren't like as keen on doing things like events. Like now that's something that me and Kristian are very passionate about, like actually having a client come in and work through the full process. Like we're not saying that people have to come in and be,
I do a marathon of that, but having like a roadmap, having a dream.
At some point, like doing, even if it's like our first ever park run or something that gets you uncomfortable, actually having a fitness goal to work towards over and above like just aesthetics goals, because that changed a lot for me, and it's really, really important to me and Kristian. So we want people coming in that want to actually be more athletic and get the most out of their fitness. And some people might come in and their ambition might just be to go and be able to run like with a pal, do you know what I mean? But we build them up to doing a park run before they know it. So a year down the line and they're talking about doing their first half marathon
So that's interesting, because I think when you're in business, like, oh, okay, everyone's wanting fat loss. This is where majority of clients are, but we want to start helping these other people, and that's then going to affect the business. So I think, do you think it's just the mindset that these guys have to have the courage and confidence to say, look, this is the direction that we're moving. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be a part of this, totally fine. And is that where the ripple effect to like some shade and all that was thrown?
Yeah.
Is that where it came from?
Yeah.
Did it affect any other clients within the group, or how did you manage to manage it overall?
Not as far as
just kick them out the door.
We're aware.
Beat it.
Some people like it finished in like a civil way, because most people kind of understood the change that we were making. It was more just, this is the direction that we were going down. Like obviously it wasn't what they'd signed up for, and it was kind of fair enough, but there were a few more challenging people where like some difficult conversations were had to be had.
Like what though? I'm trying to think of like what would be the challenge. It's like, here, this is what we're doing. You want to be a part of it? More than welcome to. But if not, then look, we need to we'll help you out, but we want to part ways. What was the kickback?
I don't know want to go into too much detail in case anyone's like.
No, we don't have to say like it is. Was it just the whole like use her on your high horse type of thing?
Not even so much at like we're on our high horse, just maybe like people not necessarily, I don't know how to word this. Like, not that anyone ever thought that we were on our high horse, but more just people like seeing the business changing and not being happy that that's what they initially came in for, but then just, you know, it's like people are a bit
Jealous.
flaky anyway, not even jealous, but I think
change.
yeah, like people don't like change, and it is uncomfortable, and
That's
yeah,
what it
just
is
a
then.
bit, yeah.
Cool, we can leave it at that then. we'll not call any names, we'll talk about it afterwards. I'm getting on. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Very excited to see what you guys do over the next couple of months and years, and I am sure there's another podium in the future when it comes to Hyrox. Definitely think you can get 50 wall balls. You can take over half the wall balls. Should be easy peasy.
Watch me Madrid, because I've only got 75 and it's a 4 kilogram ball, so
Solo ones, of course, you need to
yeah.
So it'll be exciting to see you do your, hopefully you get flights for a decent price.
I know.
I don't know what we're going to do.
It's so expensive.
I don't know if I want to pay 800 quid between us just to get it for a weekend in Madrid. Poland's one? No, Poland's still.
Yeah, there's is it Poznan's?
Yeah.
How you say it?
Yeah, I think so.
No idea.
There's a lot of, it's weird how there's a lot of UK people just travelling the world.
We've got clients going to Paris as well, and they were saying the flights are dead cheap for Paris.
Oh, is it?
I would have thought Paris would have been more expensive than Madrid.
Maybe we do Paris then instead, because they're all around about the same time. So it'll be interesting. Well, again, thank you for your time. I'll shout out where everybody can find you and that sort of stuff at the start, but absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks
for having me.
No problem.